I want to further extrapolate if you would have to consider open sourceness of this tech. So React Native Windows, React Native open source technologies, easier probably to gauge, to estimate if this is already like production ready for your particular use case. How about some closed source technologies? Are there any other considerations there?
Yeah, I mean, same thing where, except you just have less visibility. Because with GitHub, you can clone the code, you can run code climate auditor, ESLint, or whatever you want to do to get a gauge of what's the complexity of the code base, what's the code coverage of their automated tests and stuff like that. So you really are relying on first thing you can kind of rely on is who are your other customers, and then you go and have a very high candor conversation or try to find someone that you can just go like, what do you think of this vendor? Because now you're not talking about necessarily a community. You're talking about a vendor that you have a support contract with, possibly an SLA, right? A service level agreement. So like if their service goes down for more than 24 hours, you pay your own customer like $10,000 every hour that you're down, right? Some SLAs are that strict. And trying to find a customer that's like, have you deployed this at scale? What has it been like? Some commercial off-the-shelf software products. The licensing can be really cantankerous. And I don't mean open source licensing, which is its own thing, but I just mean like, where it's like, yeah, if you're a small or medium-sized thing, the pricing seems reasonable, but then as soon as like you get across some threshold, it becomes unreasonable. So, and
then you're tied in to this particular solution.
And you're kind of really committed. So there's kind of two insane things that I look for. And I've made these kinds of deals with customers when I have my own company. And one is code escrow. So if the company goes bankrupt or closes or whatever else, and you're like, well, I've got you deployed it, or what am I supposed to do? So there's a thing called code escrow that you can sign into your contract with the company, with that entity, to say like, yeah, if you go belly up, you have to give us and you can get pretty specific, like a working Docker container that allows us to self-host the code as you had it, and your full, source repository with all the history, blah, blah, blah.
So like insurance policy.
Yeah, and if you're doing like a $10 million deal or whatever, that's not inappropriate to go like, we're taking a bet on you. We need some assurance besides your nice handshake. Like contractually, What can we do? So code escrow is one thing that can be helpful. And I did that when I had my own startup. I didn't have I just did to close deals because I didn't care if people had the source code. Stuff like, because they don't have the team. They can have the source code and all of our automated tests and whatever else. But they won't have the team. But to be also from the customer perspective, they take a chance on you, and you want to return that. I want to return that in kind and go, here's what I can do for you. If this thing goes to zero, you can have source code. And also, we made sure, like in our master services agreement, for instance, that it was worded in such a way that customers could hire employees away if the company became insolvent, for instance. So that they get the source code and they could hire one of the people to come in and kind of carry it forward. The other sort of crazy thing that I look for to try to de-risk those situations is understanding who the investors are. If it's a privately funded company that's been kind of funded with venture capital or whatever, and understanding what those investors' expectations are, that will usually give you the best indicator of how bad the licensing and support problem is going to get. If an investor has a thing where it's like, well, we're going to give you $2 million pre-seed, but you need to be $1 billion company in 3 years, what's going to happen around year 2 or year 2.5 is it's really annoying when this happens, but it happens quite a bit. Then what companies start to do is they just start to like really like turn the screws on their existing customer base. And then those customers go somewhere else, that's less annoying. Or some companies will try to like package more and more and more sort of consulting and services with their software, as opposed to something that you can just buy, get training on, and run with. And people should absolutely get paid what software is worth, and people should get paid for training and for services that are, in extenuating circumstances. But if the idea is that I'm going to buy a closed source thing for, $2 million licensing a year and have to pay an on-site professional services person, and let's say that comes up to like $500,000, then I'm kind of like, why wouldn't I build my own thing in open source at this point and just
I was
have
going
control
I
over
was
the
going to
operational
go back
costs
to
and
that
stuff?
actually.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what I'm hearing from you is there are different metrics when you want to establish if some solution is good for you or not. Going into open source has its benefits, also has some of its cons. When going with the closed source, you have also some hedges that you need to establish. So you need to de-risk, right?